Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Jiayanu, Pachera Gale, Ni Hao, Churashumme, Washmale. Ohio Gonzaimas, Guten Morgen, Hola, Bonjour, Privyet, Kaifa Hal. Hale Shubha Chatore, Ahlan Wasal, Marhaba, Buna, Mucho, Gracias, Swabia, Bhalli Garea. Hoş geldin, and I was saying, Chi Hal Jod, Kalimera Khairutan, and a very warm welcome to everybody who's tuned into PTV World and watching World this morning, alongside my very well-learned colleague who happens to be Miss Hajra Satti. I happen to be Shahzad Hasan Khan, and we hope and pray that everybody out there is having a wonderful Thursday morning over here in Islamabad and all over the world. Ladies and gentlemen, to begin with, hello Hajra, Assalamu alaikum. How are you feeling today?
Walaikum assalam. Thank you so much for introducing me. Today happens to be 7th of November, and I think the entire global attention, including the media attention, is towards the superpower seat of throne, that is the Trump victory. But I think a lot of people had done their own political analysis as to which candidate was winning. But it was not just the humans who were doing the analysis or were predicting who is going to win the election. It was also in the kingdom of animals that there was one hippopotamus, a baby hippopotamus, all the way in the Bangkok in the Thailand, who had predicted the Trump's victory. And the hippo's name was Mo Deng, who has predicted the 2024 winner of the elections. And the zoo in which this local celebrity is being kept is now being flocked by so many people, thousands of people, because he has garnered a lot of attention. And obviously his name Mo Deng in Thai means bouncing pig, and he has taken the internet by the storm, challenging the keepers with the unexpectedly big crowd who has flocked that. And wow, Shahzad, so I think we also need to do something like that, right? Make our animals choose according to the political analysis, and you would get viral.
I mean, imagine, I think that the poor hippo might not even know what he's being used for. I think, so we certainly need to kind of figure out a way where we do know that, okay, we do have the hippo's consent on whether I have to choose Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. But while we're at it, whatever the hippo did, he did it right, or it did it right. Ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump has won the U.S. elections 2024 and will make a historic return after a gap of 4 years. What does Mr. Donald Trump or the president-elect says? I think that's something that we really need to listen to, because that will be pivotal for the entire world. And certainly, as Hajra mentioned, that it's like one of those realms which will have an impact, I mean, globally. So let's take a good listen.
Union, non-union, African American, Hispanic American, Asian American, Arab American, Muslim American. We had everybody, and it was beautiful. I will not rest until we have delivered the strong, safe, and prosperous America that our children deserve and that you deserve. This will truly be the golden age of America. That's what we have to have.
Right, and he has congratulated everyone who has elected him. So to further delve into that and discuss about it, obviously we will going to develop this conversation, but our Prime Minister has also tweeted and congratulated Donald Trump on his victory. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has congratulated the President-elect Donald Trump on this historic victory, and he wants the cooperation between Pakistan and America to continue. To further delve into this very historic win of the Donald Trump, we are very glad that we have been joined by PTV World's Anchorperson, who is in the America, who is covering the elections there. Assalamu alaikum, Jawad, and thank you so much for joining us from all the way from the US.
Okay, thank you very much, Hajra. It's been an incredible journey as far as this outcome of the presidential elections here in the United States of America. Right now, I'm traveling from one city to the other. Perhaps there might be a little bit of distortion or noise, so that you will have to bear up with that. So, just going on to what the numbers stand at the moment, something victory. In fact, it won't be wrong to say the former president, now the new president-elect, who is going to be the 47th president of the United States of America, and we'll delve into deeper into that what are the priorities, could be the challenges ahead for him. But before touching that particular area, let me just quickly go in recent past. This election drama has been phenomenal.
Right, Jawad. So I won't really want to discuss about the swing states because they were essential in deciding the election, and that were Michigan, Dearborn, North Carolina, and other of the 2 states. So, and in these states, the Arab American votes were very essential in catapulting Donald Trump to this historic stage. Was that a protest vote against what is happening, especially in the Middle East and the American community, especially Muslim American community residing in the America is really angry with the Democrats with what happened under the Biden and the Harris administration?
True, Hajra. This particular factor played a very crucial role in this particular outcome of the election. When we talk about these 7 swing states or the battleground states, the top of which was Pennsylvania, and collectively these 7 swing states carry 93 electoral college votes. So last time around, in comparison to last time around, like in 2020, we saw out of these 7 swing states, Democrats, Joe Biden grabbed 6, and only 1 went for former President Donald Trump. Now this time around, it's been a phenomenal victory in all these swing states as far as former President Donald Trump is concerned. Specifically talking about Michigan State, where there is a considerable, in fact, the largest Muslim and Arab population. Of course, there's been a resentment, especially when we talk about the situation that has developed, unfolded since 7th of October 2023. Muslims around the world have been riled up because of the atrocities, the brutalities which have been committed by.
Exactly, and Jawad, in addition to this, while we are speaking about this as well, I think that there's one major aspect to it, and that is that the world actually eyes on the president-elect, and it's because of the fact that imagine that the people are eyeing that, okay, in days to come we will see that there will be seizures to wars, there will be an impact globally. How do you see that? Do you think that the manifesto brought forward by the Republican Party is something which will be achieved in the 4-year term of the president-elect?
Okay, Shahzad, it's a very pertinent question. During this particular entire course, since I've been covering this election, right there from Pakistan, I've done over dozens of shows. This question remains to be recurring in my discussion with my panelists also. When it comes to the U.S. policy, the foreign policy, global front, the main issues we have seen in the last couple of years, the Ukraine crisis, the kind of situation there in Gaza, the unequivocal and relentless support of the Biden administration, not only verbally, but in practical terms, when we talk about the aid, military aid, nominally being relayed, despite we saw that shuttle diplomacy on the part of Secretary of State Antony Blinken, but of no use. The ceasefire hasn't been achieved, this particular atrocity on the part of the
Right, Jawad, one important aspect, one last question before we wrap up this segment is obviously there is a duopoly, there is Republicans and there are Democrats, but there is emergence of the third party called Green Party. It was led by Dr. Jill Stein and her vice presidential candidate was Dr. Bilal Butchware. Do you think Green Party has made inroads and there are cracks within that system of the duopoly which is being finished and eroded by the Green Party? What's your analysis on that?
Okay, so Hajra, it's a very interesting thing. Last day, I was actually thinking it is a two-party, primarily a two-party system where we get to see Republicans and Democrats in quite hotly contested battle all the time. But this particular introduction of a new party, I mean, it could be a new chapter in the U.S. political history. But I think there's a long way for any of the new political force over here in the United States of America to come and make a considerable gain on the ground. So it's going to be quite an uphill task. We have seen, as far as the map at the moment, the results so far received 291 electoral college votes, clearly telling us that Republicans and that in the central states of the United States of America and also those swing states. When we look at the map on the eastern side and the western side, the Democrats remain victorious in those states. So it's going to be quite an uphill task, whoever the third force happens to be in the future to make.
Jawad, thank you so much, for your time and safe travels to wherever you are traveling. And since already you were covering, it was an elaborate exercise that you've indulged yourself into as well. So safe travels back home as well. We miss you over here at PTV World Studios. But in addition to this, I think, Hajra, where you mentioned how our HIPAA was actually kind of able to figure out that Trump's going to win the elections.
True.
I think what humans these days are trying to figure out is if whether artificial intelligence and machine learning can have some of our data and protect us from illnesses in future. Do you think that that's readily possible?
Yeah, I really don't know, how future will unfold, but definitely we can utilize the potential of the machine learning for our advantage, and we can have that integration into the healthcare. How is that unrolling particularly, and how is artificial intelligence can play a role in the preventive healthcare? So to discuss on that and further delve deeper into this subject, we are very glad that we have been joined by someone in the studio who happens to be a microbe literary initiative. He has taken this initiative in Pakistan. He belongs to NUST. He happens to be Dr. Muhammad Tariq. Assalamu alaikum, sir, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Hajra, thank you.
Good morning, sir. It's wonderful to have such a good-looking, amazing gentleman over here in the studios early in the morning, and such soft-spoken person.
So, Dr. Tariq, let's kickstart our conversation and let's talk about the big data and how we can have that intervention for healthcare system in terms of digitalization.
I think it is very important. I mean, from the perspective that how the world has actually made this journey from 1950s when we started about, what computer sciences can actually deliver to the human, health and, other aspects of living. It carried on actually until 1956 when, I think it was more formalized as to how we are going to use computer sciences into machine learning into a predictive science actually. So predictive sciences is becoming very important from all aspects actually, right? It is into many disciplines and industries. But from a health perspective, I think Pakistan took initiative back in 2009 actually, when there was no mention of digital health automation or e-governance, for example, right? So in 2009, we started with digitizing district health, data, making sure, that National Telecommunication Corporation has a website that actually acquires and, all this data and your information about, supply chains and district supplies and procurement. That science actually gets into data acquisition and it becomes, analytical for us to make use of that. So I would say Pakistan, despite the fact that the world has been progressing at a different fast pace, we progressed also well, and now we have come to the point that this data can be used for many good.
But sir, in addition to this, when we speak of big data, obviously there's another conversation that Hajra was having before the show, so I do not want to tap onto that. What I would want to tap on is that imagine that doctor or probably an MBBS student who read a book of phlebotomy or physiology or any other book. I think the book itself has changed now in 2024, so there are new medical practices, there are new research is coming in every day. So when we speak about machine learning, because I've seen how now we're using robots to kind of figure out what's wrong with any gentleman in any rural area, how do you think that we will keep on updating that as well as soon as the research comes in? Because unfortunately, I think there'll be a red tick mark, for anybody if it's not being updated.
Yeah, no, I would say I think it depends, how good quality data you manufacture in the past actually, and how that good quality data can actually predict your future, because artificial intelligence is actually using past to predict your future. And from the point of view of Pakistan, I would say, I'm teaching actually, biotechnologists and biomedical engineers and sciences students, artificial intelligence, and that is giving enough evidence from Pakistan as to how you can have, for example, a stock out, understocking, overstocking alerts to a district authority or a provincial authority or a national authority.
And they're using it already, if I'm not wrong.
They are using it, their warehousing practices at the national level, coming back to the provincial and then district. It's basically articulating as to how your demographic requirements are tied with your procurement and supply management practices, and then give you, enough information which can predict as to what is needed when and where.
But Dr. Khalid, I think one of the very important discussion that we need to have, and it's a global discussion, right? That is that physician-patient relationship is characterized by confidentiality, and it's a very essential aspect in the healthcare, right? When we delve into the realm of ethicare, right, healthcare and ethics, when you talk in terms of big data, there's no confidentiality involved in it. How do you protect the identity of your patients in that entire aspect? And what sort of conversations do you think we need to have in this discussion?
I think it's an evolving science,
Debate,
I would say.
But
I would say, I think in the modern world where you have information policy in a well shape, you have data security, data hosting, and data use, kind of policies, then you can actually articulate this very well. But in a world where you look at Pakistan, for example, in remote areas or village areas, where there are no doctors, there are no nurses, and you have to connect public policy with people, where you're trying to give access to health. Then I think doing even this, that there's a machine that listens to you, to your symptoms and signs, and articulate it into some kind of machine learning. But I think there are different models. One model is that you have enough information and you articulate and you give a prescription. But then you have a machine tied with a background physician, for example. So he will process the information as to what was said, and then articulate it as a more, I would say, resonating and more practical solution to patients.
Exactly. And in addition to this, sir, I mean, obviously this comes from my own personal feelings and experiences. And what I feel is that, God forbid, even if there's a breach in big data, about the medical history of the people of the country, what harm can it bring to you, unfortunately? I think that's the kind of discussion that we really need to have, that why do we have so much stigma around it, ki yaar hamara data leak na ho jaye? I mean, if you're ill, unfortunately, obviously it's your personal opinion or preference to say whether nobody should know if I'm ill or not. But what's going to go wrong?
I mean, if someone has AIDS and that information is disclosed, I mean, that's going to get that person taboo for the rest of his life. So it's an essential
probably the morality of it, the ethos of it.
I think the application of confidentiality is only towards most at-risk populations and vulnerable populations, or maybe a defense industry. Other than that, it's a very public information. Look at America, for example. The whole data of Medicare is actually managed by the president of the country. And he looks after the whole business that is governed by all those industrials, pharmaceutical companies and so on and so forth, in making sure that, So
you can probably tell everybody, I know what you're doing.
But I think in Pakistan, I would say, I think we need to apply it more on the preventive side, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that is what we need to see.
And that's exactly what I wanted to speak about. Now, imagine that every time that, unfortunately, when there was COVID, unfortunately, when there's malaria, unfortunately, when there's dengue, what we do is that we have a very vertical system of it. Ki COVID, make a COVID's department, who's actually going to look after, make a malaria department, make a dengue-centric department, whatnot. And because nobody as of now in Pakistan have actually had this conversation that we need to take our healthcare practices towards preventative measures rather than creating departments here and there and whatnot, because we do have the ability, Pakistani doctors world over are known for their capabilities and the ability to kind of look after people. So why do you think that we were not able to move to that aspect, and how do you think machine learning and artificial intelligence will help us towards moving or transition towards the preventative healthcare? Sorry for a longer question.
No, thank you so much. I think I'll go back to my story that comes from Washington, when I was at the University of Washington. So one of my professor asked me to give a lecture at the School of Public Affairs, right? And he said, what is the biggest problem of Pakistan in healthcare? I said, projectitis, right? So projectitis is exactly, we have so much of verticals that does not actually give the power of public policy deliverance to the society, actually. So coming back from that perspective as to how you see political epidemiology and social epidemiology applying to the human advantage, I think it is very important now for the governments, including, of course, our government of Pakistan, to see how we can actually integrate primary health care, which can answer many things, actually. Because most of the load is happening to the tertiary health care and secondary health care, which we can prevent at the primary. And primary is all about health education, health promotion, making sure that people take action when it is required to take action. And I tell you, back in 2009, when I was asked to do supply chain management in Pakistan and digitize, at this point in time, we have so much of good data that can actually articulate as to how you can do your forecasting quantification sciences, which corporate sector use in terms of developing your businesses. What is the next 10 years Pakistan would require in terms of family planning for women? And how many women are required to do, for example? Or, for example, how many infections are we going to face for HIV, TB, malaria, or, salmonella, which is becoming a very important problem for Pakistan? Like, this whole multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. I think this is the right time where, the World Health Assembly is actually, asking Pakistan and many other member states to establish IHR authorities, actually, International Health Regulation or One Health Authority. That means it's not only health. You need to make sure that your animal health, your human health, and your environment are going to talk to each other. And once they speak to each other, you are going to create enough data to take an action where your laboratories will give you enough information to apply what is needed in Kasur or bhakkar, layya, or, you know.
And if
dadu.
we move in this direction, I
Right.
think what will happen is that, you know, where there's always a conversation about, you know, our carbon footprint and whatnot, I think everything will be a part of it, and then certainly we won't have to go into different directions, into amalgamating a process where everybody's healthier in the environment we live in, the animals which surround us, and the people, you know, us
And
ourselves.
I think COVID has taught us this lesson very well, that how interconnected our health is. So there were a lot of you know, theories originating, you know, how it's originated from the bats or something like that, right? So animal health, human health, and environment health, they are very interconnected, and the climate change has really proven the fact that we need to invest more in such sort of arenas. Thank you so much, Dr. Saab, for coming here, for having this wonderful conversation on the emerging technology, artificial intelligence, human intelligence, and how we can utilize human intelligence to our benefit, that too by incorporating the machine intelligence with that. We're going on a short break, and after we come back, we will continue to have this discussion on the human health. Don't go anywhere. Good morning.
Good morning. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you so much for staying tuned. Well, in recent developments, we have got a great news for all those Pakistanis out there. Hajra, why don't you take the lead and let us know?
Yeah, so in a very interesting development, Mohammad Hasif has become the first amateur snooker champion. He has won the World Snooker Championship for the third time. In the final, Mohammad Hasif defeated Iran's Ali 3-5, rather 5-3 in the frames. In the semi-final, Mohammad Hasif defeated Michael of the Cyprus by 5-3 frames. Mohammad Hasif won World Snooker Championship in 2012 and in 2019.
Wow. I
And
mean, you know, when you hear such a good news, obviously
Yeah.
the first thing which will you will do is smile, basically. So, and smile knowing that, you know, is the best curve on a human body, ladies and gentlemen. But you certainly need to have some hygiene to make sure that you smile
But you know,
openly,
people
right?
spend a lot of money on improving their smiles. You know, I never knew that until I came across, you know, the aesthetic sides of the dentistry. So in order to have that deeper conversation about the aesthetic side of the dentistry and how we can have a good oral hygiene, we are very glad that we have been joined by someone who happens to be, I think I would like Shahzad to take the lead and
I think
introduce him.
he's an amazing guy. Imagine that, you know, he did his BDS from Pakistan, went to UK, works over there while he was traveling. So I was like, okay, you know, why shouldn't we have you over here? So we can have an amalgamation of the idea where how dental health is being looked after probably in the developed countries and in developing countries to have a mix. Ladies and gentlemen, we're very lucky that we've been joined by Dr. Hamza Khalid, who happens to be a general dentist. Hello, Hamza. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for joining us. Wonderful to have you over here.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Right. So Hamza, let's kickstart our conversation. Walk us through a good oral hygiene routine.
A good routine. So how I describe it is we have foundations and we have accessories.
Okay.
So your foundation is always going to be, I always say, with brushing.
Okay.
That's brushing twice a day.
Okay.
And then the most important part is the interdental. So that's what we say between the teeth.
Okay.
So that is those little brushes. We usually see our parents
Floss.
use them. We think old people use them the most, but no, we all should.
Are you
Yeah.
talking
And
about
then-
miswak?
Floss.
Similar, but
Right.
it's like small little brushes which just go
Okay,
between the
okay,
teeth.
okay.
So that and floss,
Okay.
both of them.
Okay.
But twice a day brushing, that once a day. And then people throw in mouthwashes, things like this, but I always think of them as accessories.
Right.
And if we don't have a good foundation, then we
Then what's
can-
the point of the accessory?
Almost.
Thank you so much,
almost,
Dr. Hamza. But what, in addition to this, I think what I would certainly like to ask you is, what's the right time to brush your teeth? Now, imagine that, you know, early in the morning, some people before breakfast, some people after breakfast. What's the right time and right routine to make sure that you are on top of your oral hygiene?
I mean, I would always say first thing in the morning, last thing at night. To be honest, I mean, there are little variations where people say, oh, it's more effective, you know, after breakfast or before
Right.
breakfast. But I feel like when you think about this too much, it gets complicated. I always say keep it simple.
Right.
Do it first thing in the morning, last thing at night. So it doesn't really make too much of a difference, to be
Right.
honest. When
Dr. Hamza, I think one of the very important aspect of personality grooming, and that can severely affect is like the bad breath problem, right? Please delve into the causes of that and how we can cater to that, because your self-confidence is linked to, you know, this entire
Yes.
issue,
No, definitely,
the odor
100%.
of your mouth. Yeah.
I mean, the biggest one for bad breath, I mean, there are certain kind of diseases we have which can lead to bad breath, and that can be throughout the whole body,
Okay.
which can lead to bad breath. So, but the main one is bad oral hygiene. I
Okay.
mean, dentistry, sometimes it can seem complicated. It's very simple.
Right.
I would say the main thing you want to do at home is just focus on your hygiene, your brushing, your cleaning. As long as you get that done, the bad breath, it just won't be a problem, to be honest. I mean, some of it is psychological as well. So we get times where people are coming in, I have bad breath, but they don't. It's in your mind as well. So just as long as you do what you can do at home, everything else fits.
I mean, and it's wonderful to be in conversation about that as well. But these days, what we have seen is that obviously, certainly I think dermatology or cosmetology has taken the lead over here, and the aesthetic side of it, with veneers, and I don't know, there's so many fancy terms these days, and certainly you need fancy terms to get a lot of money out of people's pockets, So how is the practice probably, if we are to talk about specifically aesthetics, probably in the United Kingdom, and we see people over here being crazy about, oh, I need to get my smile fixed and whatnot. So getting your smile fixed probably might not be the aesthetic side of it, but getting veneers and everything else. So how does that kind of correlate? Do you think that the practices are the same over there, or they're more health oriented?
So I think with aesthetics, it's not just kind of here where it's getting bigger, or just, I think it's a worldwide, kind of a worldwide phenomenon going on at the moment.
Yeah.
And I feel like it is a reflection of kind of society at the moment. And not in a negative way or anything, but it is very kind of materialistic, very almost vain to say, but like I said, not in a negative way, it's just how the world is at the moment. But then with the aesthetic treatment, so Botox and filler, for example, there are kind of clinical uses for them. So for example, someone has a gummy smile, we can give them filler to bring it down. If they're grinding their teeth, we can give Botox here, reduce the masseter muscle, and that would reduce the activity, help the grinding. So there are kind of clinical uses, and it is a new field that is constantly changing, new technology, new information's coming out.
But Dr. Hamza, we see a lot of celebrities, they are applying these methods, and we see that how horribly, these procedures go wrong. So what are some of the considerations that as a layperson, because obviously we are not very well versed in the field, right? The choices that we need to make, or the prerequisites that we should look after if someone is going for these procedures.
Because certainly I do not want to wake up with one cheek bigger than the other one, or one eyebrow upper than the other one. So that's not what we want, right?
I mean, this is where kind of the experience of the clinician comes in. So a lot of people can do these treatments. So in the UK, for example, beauticians and a lot of other people apart from medical professionals can do it, but it's mainly looking at that practitioner, seeing their history, seeing previous results, and just doing your research basically. I mean, look, we're all safe, we're all doctors, anything happens, there are ways to fix them as well, so don't be worried, but just do your research first, see who you're going to see, make sure you're comfortable, and even if you have a little bit of doubt, just don't do it.
Yeah, and get some feedback as well, because for any clinic that you're going to walk into, probably figure out who their patients are, and just be in conversation with them if the doctor is competitive enough or not. But in addition to this, I think I would love to add it over here that now imagine that this is some, I don't know whether it's a myth, it's a fact or whatnot, that your teeth color actually depends on your bone color. Is that true? First of all, let me ask this, yes or no?
What does yellow teeth indicate?
Yeah.
Right?
So yellow teeth.
Off-white, right?
Yeah,
Sorry, not yellow. Wrong choice.
So look, very rarely are people born with completely white teeth. Like white as clouds, that's very rarely going to happen. So most people you do see with completely white teeth, usually is a cosmetic treatment, they've gone through whitening. So everyone has a slight kind of discoloration, that's normal, that's what natural teeth are. So someone on your right might have yellow teeth, but they'd be completely healthy. Someone on the left might have white teeth, and at the same time they won't be healthy. So it's just these slight different. We're humans at the end of the day. I think we're not robots kind of all built in a lab.
But how can we make them more whiter?
I'd say
because these days there's these purple toothpaste which are coming in, color correctors and whatnot. Are they healthier for our teeth?
No, they do help. The whitening toothpaste especially, they can help, but the thing with them is, especially, have you seen the ones with charcoal in them, kind of a little gritty material? Overusing them can lead to sensitivity down the line. So I always say when you're going for whitening treatments, get it done by a professional, because you always want to get your treatments done by a professional, because anything goes wrong, we're there and then we can fix it. So with a lot of these treatments.
I think one question which I've asked you previously as well, and that is that, with growing age, you do see, because of our brushing habits, some people will brush it hard. People who go to the gym, I don't know, they're applying more force. So you do see, receding gums, which you're certainly not aware of, that your toothbrush is actually hurting you or your gums as well. And then, by the time that you realize it, that something's gone wrong, it's just too late. And you said that it's better to use an electronic toothbrush rather than a normal one, because then you just put it there and does not go to the gums and whatnot. How do we protect our gums?
So how it protects our gums? So yeah, like you were saying, manual and electric toothbrush. With a manual brush, you tend to scrub a lot more.
Okay.
So you end up, brushing very hard. You're trying to get that piece off at the bottom. You're really brushing hard. That's actually detrimental to your gums.
Right.
Okay.
So just brushing hard doesn't necessarily mean you're cleaning well. So that's why we usually recommend an electric brush in cases like that, just because then there's less pressure. The toothbrush is doing the work for you.
Right.
So with an electric brush, you kind of want to hold it on the
Yeah,
surface.
you don't go up and down.
You're not moving it, constantly scrubbing, you're kind of holding it
It's
for
very
about 10.
difficult, doing it like
Yeah.
this way, because we are tuned to do it like
You have
this.
an electronic
So,
one?
so
Yeah.
it is slight change. Some people go to using electric brush and they just can't get used to it. But like I said, with the electric brush, you're not moving around as much. So
Right.
that is just what's going to help your gums in the end.
Exactly. And one last question towards the end, and that is that unfortunately one fine day, there you are eating chips, watching Netflix and chilling and whatnot. All of a sudden you see that your tooth has decayed so much that it just fell off. How do you think that we can protect ourselves or our teeth from tooth decay, number one, then gingivitis, if I'm not wrong, and what are the solutions around it and general well-being of your oral health?
Is it coming from personal tone?
Oh yes, it is. Because then I had to rush for a filling.
Okay.
I was like, okay, I might probably be a chip stuck somewhere there. I kept on helping her. Then I realized,
That's
no,
because
my-
you
my
don't
tooth
share
fell
your
off.
chips. That might be the case. Yeah.
He is greedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and,
Greedy.
and how many times do we have to brush? What is healthy brushing? 2 times, 3 times. There are people who are just, obsessed with it. Oh, I need to brush my teeth every time of the day.
Yes. See, so for example, that overbrushing, that, like I said, it is actually detrimental. So brushing too much is actually a bad thing as well. So you
Right.
want to find this nice kind of grey area in the middle.
Yeah.
So that's, like I always say, your foundation. Brushing twice a day,
Okay.
2 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
Morning and night. First thing in the morning, last thing at night. And then your incidental brushes. And then other factors as well. So for example, balanced diet. So I'm
Okay.
not saying cut out sugar completely, don't have it. It's a balanced diet.
Right.
You don't want to have anything too sugary, too extreme in anything. Fizzy drinks, don't want to avoid them.
Okay.
And I think the main thing, especially over here, it is changing slowly as well, is just regular dental checkups.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what we see in the UK is a lot of the patients we see them quite regularly, twice a year, minimum probably once a year.
Right.
They're coming in quite a regular basis. So a lot of them come in, don't really need any treatments,
Right.
but anytime there is that kind of dental decay, we'll catch it early so we can stabilize it. Not necessarily you need a filling straight away, whereas over here, unless you're having pain or kind of your tooth is almost chipped off, like you were saying,
Yeah.
that's the only time you're going. Whereas if you went maybe 6 months before that, a year before that, we would have caught it and fixed it there and
Right.
then.
Wow.
So
And I
That's
think
wonderful.
one thing that we would like on the concluding remarks to take our audiences away is that we make sure that you have a more preventive sort of the measures at your place and you go out for the regular dental checkup. Thank you so much.
And they can certainly, kind of follow, probably, ask a
Right.
question on his Instagram page as well. I think it's @Khalid,
Yeah,
if I'm
Khalid
not wrong. So
_
reach out to him, if you have any questions. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're heading out towards a short break. So if you're healthier, if you're taking advantage of artificial intelligence, navigation, geographical mapping, and if you've got a great smile, who's stopping you from going for a vacation? I think that's something that we will be talking about right after a short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome back, and before going on to the break, Shahzad alluded to sort of the conversation that we are going to develop, and that is related to the traveling. And I think traveling is one thing that we should always undertake regardless. And I think it's not about, how much money do you have, because traveling, if you have the smartness in you, you can always manage the travel, and it is something that always broaden your horizon. So in order to further delve that conversation, and especially to look for the places that are very scenic, that have that virgin, rugged beauty, but at the same time very affordable and new places to explore, we are joined by someone in the studio who have flown all the way from the Sri Lanka, and he is not just an alumni of the Harvard universities, but he has so many feathers to his cap. He also happens to be the chairman of the Sri Lanka Tourism and Sri Lanka Export Development Board. He is also the executive director of the National Economic Council Tourism Sector, and he's also the head of the tourism carrying the capacity study of the UNESCO heritage site funded by the UNDP. We are very glad that we have been joined by Dr. Rohantha Athukorala. Assalamu alaikum, sir, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Thank you for the invite.
Right, and joining Dr. Rohantha, we are very glad that we have been joined by Air Vice Marshal retired Ijaz Malik Saab. Assalamu alaikum, sir, and thank you so much for once again coming
And to
to our show.
kickstart the conversation, obviously, ladies and gentlemen, you know, we're very lucky, first of all, Dr. Saab, that you're here, and it's because of the fact that imagine that, you know, you happen to be the chairman Sri Lanka Tourism and Sri Lanka Export Development Board, you've been an alumni of Harvard University, and when you took control of things, your tourism was somewhere around lurking at $300 million, $400 million. 4 years down the line, it's at $4 billion for Sri Lanka, and it's a great achievement, first of all. How did you do that, and how do you think that we can replicate the same idea for Pakistan, or probably better?
See, one thing which, thank you very much for having me. I really
problem.
appreciate and lovely having you, sir, also. So I think one of the key things that we have to understand is that tourism belongs to the people of
Yes.
that country,
Yes.
and it doesn't belong to a relevant authority.
Okay.
And the task of all the chairmen of Sri Lanka tourism that has been for the last 4 or 5 years is that they empowered institutions to go out there and do things. And the logic is very simple, because 99.9% of the tourism industry is owned by the private sector. So given that you create a conducive environment where anybody would like to just come over into your country, they would select what kind of interest they would have, be it whether they would like to go to wildlife, they would like to go for natural ancient tourism, or whether they would like to go for sports, or they would like to go to the beach, or they would want to go and see, you know, your hill country, Ceylon tea. End of the day, you know, they can select their own journey. So they create their own journey. So today's traveler is very different. They like to have their own itineraries. They don't want to go on a fixed itinerary. Even if you look at the purchasing process, they wouldn't want to go into a travel agency to pick your.
More
still.
personalized choices they want to make.
They would like to their own research. They will look at YouTube. They will look at the Instagrams. They will look at the Facebooks. They'll pick up their own journey that they would like to do, and they come over, and they would like to stay in homes. Homestays and villas are getting very, very popular. So I think the success of the model in Sri Lanka belongs to the people and to the private sector who owned it, and the jobs of all the tourism chairs was only facilitating policy.
Right, and Dr. Rohantha, we see that when you have a vibrant tourism, so there are so many industries that are associated with the tourism. For example, there is entire construction industry, hoteling industry, entertainment industry, so it's a very vibrant sort of a sector. And usually in the past it was that Europe was the topmost tour destination for a lot of people around the world, but now there is a desire that people want to see societies and countries outside of the Europe, and they want to explore Asia, right? So if someone is going for the tourism to Sri Lanka, how much money, an ideal money for a week-long trip that person should have?
See, the money is dependent on the kinds of journey and the experiences that you want to have.
Right.
I mean,
so if you want to book a luxury trip, and if you're in a mid-range trip, you know how much money
She's
one
a
should
rich
have.
lady.
Not richer than Shahzad, you know.
So it depends. Like, for example, you know, if you're going to stay in a, let's say you go to Yala, it's one of the top 8 wildlife parks in the world. Now over there, you know, if you want to stay in a Hilton resort, it will be $600 a night. But on the other hand, if you like to go and stay in a mid-range hotel, you could stay for $100.
And I think you can particularly find anything which fits your size, you know, in Sri Lanka, in Pakistan, or elsewhere. That's the beauty of tourism. In addition to this, where you duly give credit to the people of Sri Lanka and the private sector in contributing towards the success of the tourism sector, what I certainly do want to ask you is that how does the government facilitate for anybody and everybody who wants to come into Sri Lanka? You know, because, you know, obviously there's a vetting process which will go into it as well, and then we certainly, for me, I'm the kind of a person where I do not want any hiccups, you know, So my hotel's booked, you know, there's enough security, there's enough infrastructure where I'm all by myself, I'm good to go. There's healthcare being provided to any tourist who comes in. So how does the government play their role in facilitating all of these private stakeholders who develop your industry?
You know, you get two sides of it. One is you get the supply chain side, and the other one is the demand side. And I think we had this international conference yesterday, which actually Sir was driving it. And one key discussion point that we had was that, you know, a government's policy should be as to how they would help maybe a property is going to be set up.
Okay.
So purchasing of the land, the approvals that are required in terms of construction of the hotels, and then of course what kind of amenities you're going to provide inside, that is where the government can facilitate. And then from the demand side, giving a national identity.
Right.
For example, you know, when I listen to the stories of Pakistan, it's so beautiful. I mean, the diversity of your country is something that we don't see in the world.
Absolutely.
And to me, a tag something like which says the oldest civilization in the world is going to get millions of tourists coming here.
And that's exactly what I would want to ask Ijaz Malik Sahab over here as well. Now, sir, obviously because he's mentioned previously we were having this conversation that Pakistan can do better. We do know about seasons and everything. Where do we go wrong? You know, but why haven't we be able to
market our country?
First of all, it's the focus and intent that which sector that we want to focus and promote. Unfortunately, in the last 75 years, we have talked a lot about the tourism potential that we have, which of course we do have. But what we have done to capitalize that potential? Unfortunately, it has been, you know, marginal. And the main reason is that we do not have a policy framework and continuity of policy. As Dr. Rohantha very aptly mentioned, that it's all about people. Government role is to, you know, be of a facilitator and enabler, right? And government doesn't have to be, you know, involved in the micromanagement, because it is such an intense demand-driven and market-driven, you know, area that within the
yes, I get your point. It's always the private sector that should be helping, you know, establishing such sort of sectors, because government is always there for the policy guidelines. But thank you so much, both of our guests.
But it was very important.
We've
One
just
point
very
that
short
was
of time,
said,
very quickly,
very important point that was mentioned by Sir is that government's duty is to get your brand into the marketplace.
Exactly.
And make your brand a top of the mind reason as to why a traveler would say, I would select Pakistan instead of going to ABC country. And once that is done, which you used a very nice word called demand driven, once they come over here, they would decide where their journey
Exactly.
is.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rohantha, for being
so
with us. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Vice Marshal retired Ijaz Malik Sahab as well. For everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, wise words, pearls of wisdom. I think for people at the helm of affairs really need to kind of understand and make it a brand and put it out for the people. Until next time, look after yourselves. 1, 2, 3.
Good
morning.
morning.